If motorcycles disappeared today, we'd look back and single out one company above all others. This company changed motorcycling, revolutionized it, took it from the fringes to the mainstream. And even if you've never ridden bikes from this brand, you've benefited from them. Is it BMW, Ducati, Harley Davidson? No, no, and no. Curious? Stick around.
El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha. Revs your heart. AGV helmets. Protect like a champion. Best Western hotels and resorts.
Welcome to El Camino. I'm Neil Graham with Jake Hudson. No more teasing. The greatest company in the history of motorcycling is Honda. And you don't have to ride a Honda or even like Honda to agree with me. Once upon a time, motorcycles were a commitment. You had to be devoted. Kickstart only, of course. And parts fell off and oil leaked, and sometimes you had to push your bike home. Some liked this. It made them feel part of an exclusive group, one that thrived on depravity. But how many did this keep away from motorcycling? We'd soon find out. 1960s motorcycles were disasters, beautiful disasters. But Harleys, Triumphs, and Nortons were old before their time. That doesn't mean they weren't desirable. I loved my Norton right up until we broke up. And then came Honda. With engineering like watchmaking, other motorcycles were suddenly old-fashioned. Yes, there were other Japanese brands. And yes, there were motorcycles with solid sound engineering. Bevel drive Ducati singles and oh so sensible BMW twins. But to start a revolution, you need to reach people where they live, in northeastern Iowa, or southwestern Kansas, or the wilds of Australia, or sleepy little Canadian towns like mine. With a massive dealer network, Honda did that. And those ad campaigns, you meet the nicest people on a Honda. These weren't niche machines. They democratized motorcycling at a time when much of the public shunned motorcycles. Without Honda, we'd still be in the dark ages. In 1960 in the US, Honda sold 2,000 motorcycles. 3 years later, 100,000. The decade belonged to Honda. This isn't hyperbole. It was the alchemy of the perfect vehicle at the perfect time. Honda was the golden age of motorcycling. Because of Honda, other manufacturers had to get better just for a shot at survival. Today, with pretty much every motorcycle reliable enough, we're free to indulge our fetishes. We choose motorcycles like we choose clothing brands, on a whim. Honda is an engineering company in a superficial world. We don't need Honda like we once did. Honda, from time to time, tries to rekindle the old magic. Bikes like the Rune, or the Fury Chopper, or the Tupperware-inspired Pacific Coast, or the DN01, which is what happens when you squish a motorcycle in a panini press. Which brings us to now, to Honda's riskiest gambit yet. At a time when everything, bodies, bellies, hamburgers, houses, are bigger, and to drive a small car is to risk being labeled a leftist, communist, vegan, hippie banjo player, Honda is doubling down on minibikes. For a company that cut its teeth looking to the future, is hearkening to the past desperation, or is Honda, again, ahead of the curve? But before we get to the new stuff, it's time to settle a score.
This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Revs your heart.
Every motorcyclist has a Honda story. Here's mine. I was with a friend, Mark, at a small town fair. I'm 6, 7 years old, and there's this guy standing in a field by himself with a Honda Z50 at his feet, holding a sign. Motorcycle rides $2. Just a guy trying to make a few dollars. He gives us instruction. Mark goes first. He takes off, shifts gears, weaves around people and dogs and horses, and comes to a stop. Easy. Now, Mark and I were very different. He could wheelie his bicycle around the block. My wheelies led to concussions. I sat on the bike. I was overwhelmed. I was on a motorcycle. Had my mother seen this, she'd have had my father arrested. I'd remembered the go part of the instructions, not the stop part. And I didn't make the connection that you steered a motorcycle like a bicycle. I twisted the throttle and the Z50 exploded. I shifted again, faster. Shifted again, faster still. A large group of people were standing with their backs to me, watching the nail driving competition. I froze at the controls and rode straight into the crowd. Mass confusion, yelling, swearing, and the pain. Everything hurt. Flying high in adrenaline, I hopped up, acted like I was as surprised as everyone else, and slipped away in the confusion, and made a vow. I would never, ever ride a motorcycle again, ever. I forgot about that in a week, but I haven't ridden a Z50 since that day, until today. Let's roll the footage. This is Dennis, the mini bike guy. No last name necessary, he says. Dennis was kind enough to bring out a trailer full of bikes for us to try. Some were show bikes, some were riders. So the two blues are 74s?
Both 74s. One is more of a show bike, one is something we can ride today.
Dennis got his first Z50 at age 10, and despite wandering off into Harleys and motocross bikes, he looped back around to his first love. As a kid, he liked Z50s because to him they looked like CB750s. When most every other mini bike was a lawnmower engine with a centrifugal clutch and a crude frame, you can see why he thought that way.
It's a lot like a real motorcycle. The engine is just amazing. This head hasn't changed in almost 60 years. Overhead valve, overhead cam, and it's just indestructible.
Restoring and selling Z50s is Dennis's full-time gig. I was surprised when he said most parts are available either from Honda or from the aftermarket, and prices are mostly reasonable. A new piston can be had for as little as $25. By now, many of the bikes you see here will have been sold and a new crop of bikes rolled into his shop. Prices, Dennis says, are between $5,000 to $7,000 for a restored bike. The most valuable Honda 50 at all is the Z50M from the first year of production, 1967. Dennis has had only one of those. They fetch well over $10,000. My favorite of his bikes? I'd say the gold one. Matches the Trans Am and Gremlin in my fantasy garage. Jake, do you have a favorite color?
Well, I would say the gold one, but we can't have the same favorite colored bike, so I don't know. I'm probably gonna go with the white and red one. Just it reminds me of an old CR, like a CR 250 or something.
They're very cute, but I'm surprised at the prices. $7,000 for a Z50. So to me, it just seems outrageous. But the market speaks. What the market says is true. It doesn't matter, what we think about it. If the market says $7,000, then that's what they're worth.
All you baby boomers just keep buying them up. You guys aren't letting us have our fun with them.
That's a good point, but I'm going to correct you because technically, I'm actually the first year of Gen X. This is what I'd hoped to do when I was 6 or 7. This is a redo, decades in the making. Jake, nice style, and your focus is incredible here. Meanwhile, I'm a mouth breather. The early bike that I'm riding here doesn't have rear suspension and it rides really rough. And the transmission doesn't shift. Not Dennis's fault, this bike is unrestored. Mouth open again, charming. Oh, here I'm showing my range. I'm gritting my teeth now. This is a face made for a tinted visor. Okay, Jake, explain to me what you're doing here.
I have no idea.
But you look really good doing it.
Yeah, I always look good.
Okay, oh, I know what's coming, Jake. And there it is, the most embarrassing low-speed crash ever.
You look like you just froze there. You just let it happen.
Something bad happened, and here I try to laugh it off. Like it's, yeah, ha, there we go.
Yeah, let's watch the replay.
Oh, so it steps out, the rear steps out. I should have high-sided, but it just turned me into the weeds.
You could have put a foot down to try to save that, but you just totally froze.
Anyway, moving on. Now this is beautiful, look at that river. You'd never know we're in a city of 3 million. If you know where this is, don't call your city councilor. The Z50 is mid-century Honda in a microcosm. When the little Honda appeared, mini bikes were rudimentary, wheelbarrow wheels, lawnmower engines. But the Z50 is a proper motorcycle in miniature. 3-speed transmission, overhead camshaft, suspension. And it's beautiful, cute enough to lick, tough enough to survive being beat on by those kids that were lucky enough to get their hands on one. Here was a kid's bike with better engineering and better build quality than top-of-the-line machines of other manufacturers. So what did these other brands do? The English ones, all of them, went out of business, and Harley, had they not been protected by US tariffs, may have done the same. The gist of it was this: if brands wanted a shot at survival, they had to get better. Maybe not Honda good, but better than they'd been. And that's how Honda improved motorcycling for everyone. A thankless task for which no one has ever thanked them. Until now. Honda, thank you.
This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts.
They may not be the stuff of dreams, but history has shown that the most significant vehicles, 2 wheels and 4, are the ones that brought mobility to the masses. The Beetle, the Mini, the Model T, and in motorcycling, the Honda Cub. Honda is hoping the formula still has some life in it, and rounded up their smallest motorcycles under the Mini Moto umbrella. Here's what the Honda guy has to say.
I think there's a change in market, and the market's speaking to us right now, and it's kind of telling us what we need, and we're kind of listening to that a little bit more and saying what they should have. I think this is a change in direction from that point of view, where the millennials are becoming the driving force of this overall market for us, and we need to attract them to that business. So we've been very good at having Gen X and boomers in our overall lineup. We need to bring new riders and new customers, and that's kind of the driving force.
I knew it. Honda, and any company that makes anything, is coveting millennials. But getting millennials to buy what you're selling isn't easy. In a gig economy, instability is the byword. And romantic visions of long rides through rolling countryside isn't the reality for most young riders today. They're working longer, unpredictable hours. And with the cost of fuel, who can afford pouring money into a big, fast motorcycle? But little motorcycles are different, diametrically opposed to my long-legged old Ducati, which doesn't begin to clear its throat and sing until you hit straight to jail speeds. On little bikes, speed bumps are a joy. Shortcuts through laneways as thrilling as a water slide. And because you're hard on the throttle, you're engaged, like you're coming over the hump at Magello at 320 kilometers an hour. But you're going 45, so you smell the lilacs in spring and the damp, dank smell of rake leaves in the fall. And when traffic on a main artery backs up, you swing down a side road. You find a new-to-you cafe. You stop. You have an espresso, fall in love with the doe-eyed barista, and begin a life together. All because you were riding a small capacity motorcycle. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a stretch. Depending on your country, the Mini Moto range differs. In the US, it's 6 models: Navi, Monkey, Ruckus, Grom, Super Cub, and Trail. In Canada, because we're Mexico with more snow, we've learned to do with less. In this case, without the Super Cub and the Trail. The Ruckus has been around forever. It's a tatted up scooter with a 50cc engine. Just twist and go. Slowly, very slowly. When traffic's moving quickly, it can make you feel vulnerable, like you're about to be vacuumed off the streets by an inflamed Prius driver. You'll be passed by kids on tricycles and basset hounds out for a stroll. But when traffic grinds to a halt, you'll swerve and slice past the Audi crowd with total impunity. The worse the city gets, the better the Ruckus becomes. Step up is the Grom. It's a 125, 5-speed transmission, funky, modern, cute. A proper motorcycle. Feels as quick as a superbike if you've just stepped off the Ruckus. But the mini motos that most intrigue us are the Navi and the Monkey. The Navi, like the Ruckus, has the underpinnings of a scooter, but it's styled to resemble a ski boot, a running shoe, who can say really? It's odd, but mostly good odd. Here's the kicker. It's just over $2,000. In the US, just under $2,000. Tired of the battery in your electric scooter dying while you're clogging dedicated bicycle lanes? Grow up and get a Navi. And the engine is a full 109 cubic centimeters, which, if you hang around little bikes long enough, begins to sound substantial. like the word Hemi. And between your knees, where you'd expect an engine, there's a storage box. It's a very odd shape, but it'll take tacos and beer. We tested it off camera. We pitted the Navi unfairly against the Monkey. Unfairly because the Navi is less than half the price of the Monkey. Itself a slick reinterpretation of the old Z50. Think new and old Triumph Bonnevilles. But the Monkey fits full-size humans way better than the old Z50s. And the Monkey's engine is lifted from the Grom, so it steps out. So Jake, this is the day of the endless bump start tour of my town, and perhaps you could explain why we're not using the Monkey's electric starter?
Well, I brought them home from Honda Canada, and I got a little excited, so I decided to start the Monkey up and go around the yard a couple times. And it turns out when you leave the key on, the battery dies. It's not like other motorcycles where it's got the automatic shut off after 5 minutes. So yeah, you weren't too impressed when I unloaded it and you went to start it, but.
Well, I've never understood when people use the kill switch to stop a bike, because of course it stops the engine but it leaves the lights on. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So have we learned our lesson?
Yeah. Ready for the best bump start of your life?
I can't wait. Push. Jake and I found the biggest hill we could and raced to the top. I was on the Monkey, but Jake could sort of keep up on the Navi. Even considering that Jake's weight is that of a basset hound, it's impressive. Let's have a look.
Oh, I feel like an idiot.
You are an idiot.
Come on, baby.
So I don't know if this comes across in the footage, but this road is really steep. It's beside a ski hill. And I was amazed at how well the Navi started out. I mean, you're really ripping along.
Yeah, it was good. It maintained a good speed, so I was happy with that. But normally you're not climbing a ski hill with the Navi. It's more meant for riding around town, going down back alleys.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting is that there's a grade of hill that you can handle if you get a run at it. But when the hill keeps going, like the Navi here, it just got slower and slower and slower. And then there was that guy in the Harley behind us. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I could hear him laughing.
He was very patient. I mean, luckily there wasn't a sport bike guy, because he'd have been really angry. I'm the least flexible human on the planet. And watch this. Watch when I'm going to do a U-turn here. Watch that leg dangle. Oh, that's pure MotoGP. Do you see that?
That was majestic. I couldn't have done that better myself.
Woo, baby! There is a reason why I downhill ski and don't uphill ski, because here we actually got some serious speed going, a little bit frighteningly fast, actually.
It felt like riding a kid's bike with training wheels out the back going down. It sort of got to that stage where it got a little wobbly and a little jumpy.
There's something at a certain speed, though, the geometry of these things isn't really meant to go 100K down a hill. They feel nervous. I mean, they're not dangerously nervous, but you get the feeling that things could get really funky really quickly. Because here, I mean, this looks like I'm doing like Mach 1. And it looks like we're gonna pass this guy in a truck, but I'm sure we won't.
If I was leading, we would have.
I think you lost probably a few kilometers an hour just because of the flapping of your hoodie. You know, that's actually wind resistance.
It's like a big parachute behind me.
It's exactly a parachute. Okay, here we are pulling up to the cafe. Really nice shot. Everything is perfect. Until we realize.
Then we look over and it's closed.
And the cafe is closed. And there I am, like, oh, I just need coffee. I just need coffee.
You're like a kid without his nap when you don't have your coffee.
It's true. I'm worse than a kid without a nap. So here we are at Good Grief. This is Jesse, who runs the place. He owns it. In fact, he did all his own tiling, which is incredible to me. He did a beautiful job. Now watch this, the pour. Now that is beautiful. Look at, see, look at that excited face. I'm like a little boy.
Yeah, then there's me with my iced coffee.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that.
This segment is brought to you by AGV Helmets. Protect like a champion.
The Navi and the Monkey are opposites. The Navi, the pragmatist choice. Mechanically and aesthetically, the Navi is as anodyne as the bicycles you rent in major cities worldwide. The ones that are so unhip that theft is not an issue. But unhip is hip. It means you're not trying so hard. The Navi is transportation. That's its reason for being. It makes no promise other than to get you to your destination. It's not about lifestyle. It won't compensate for your lack of confidence, for your funny walk, for your need to make your neighbors turn and look when you come and go. The Navi is the Model T of motorcycles. The Monkey's different. It's a machine most fully appreciated by riders who long for or had a Z50. If you were a kid of the 70s or 80s, chances are you landed on one or other side of the divide. It's why Z50s and old Honda Minis in general have become the hottest collector bikes in motorcycling. Pristine Z50s can sell for more than full-size motorcycles. Motorcycles with names like Harley-Davidson or Aprilia on the fuel tank. It shouldn't come as a surprise that the upswing in prices for old Honda Minis is driven by baby boomers. When they were young, after they graduated from minibikes, boomers bought sport bikes, then touring bikes, then cruisers, and now that time's running short, they've circled back around to the beginning. Boomers are aging out of motorcycling and craving those heady days when everything was in front of them. The Navi and the Monkey, two ways for distinctly different riders to get where they need to go.
Clothing was provided by Importations Tebow, service you can trust. El Camino was brought to you by the Motorcycle Super Show, the big one by the airport. Dynazy, 75 years of performance. Hudson Henderson, your insurance provider for motorcycle, power sports, and marine.